Hi, welcome. Angelique here, and today I am talking about the placement Capricorn moon. So, if you have this placement or you're just looking for more information, this is talking about astrology today in the moon in Capricorn, and really going to be more focusing on emotional healing, inner child healing, and looking through the lens of mythology and symbolism and really tying that all together. If it's your first time listening to me, I have been a student of astrology for over 30 years. I also have a background in counseling, mental health, and psychology. So I really love to dive deep, just like burrowing into the core and like pulling out whatever insight, and but also using that to change. So information for me, I feel like it's at its best when it can be used to facilitate change. So astrology is really good for prediction, but astrology also can be a tool for us to look at ourselves, to find out and uncover our patterns, our behaviors, even anything about our health, our body, of work. So I like to bring astrology down from the heavens, so to speak, and really ground it. What are practical things we can learn from astrology, especially as it relates to ourself and our personality? So for today's episode, I'm going to focus on Capricorn and in the sign of, or I'm sorry, in the placement of the moon. And so in a natal chart, moon in Capricorn, or just moon in general, is going to be where we can find how we emote, how we feel about our intuition, how we express that, but also it the moon relates to the child, fertility, motherhood. So it's a great placement to look and see what might have been happening in our childhood. What things do we probably need to reflect on to heal? Because it's a very sensitive point. It likes to stay hidden, but also it can be hidden even to ourselves. So, starting with the sign of Capricorn, Capricorn is uh, uncomfy, we should say, in this placement of the moon. And I'll talk a little more about why that is. But just from the outset, this can be sometimes a more difficult placement for people in their younger years because as the moon relates to childhood, a lot of things that are associated with children are light, joy, being very emotional, being very free, being very playful, not thinking about the future, being more present. So Capricorn has a harder time here because Capricorn, the sign, and we'll talk more about the mythology, but the sign is kind of the opposite of that. It really likes long-term thinking, wants to think of the future, wants to approach things more practically, more grounded. So this is a sign that reaches maturity and is easier to deal with as a person grows. So it might be more challenging throughout young adulthood into the 20s and 30s because we our development is meant to be present focus on our emotions, ourself. But Capricorn likes to be more of an authority to put things out in the world, to make goals, to really have accomplishments, and have you can't really do that when you're younger. It's harder to do, should we say. So Capricorn is ruled by the planet Saturn, and Saturn gets its name from the Roman god Saturn. And Saturn has a lot of connotations as a father figure. It's probably the epitome of what we would consider a father figure, is someone who maybe helps community or their children, but at a distance, at an emotional distance. And so, what that can look like, especially in mythology, is Saturn giving lessons, maybe being harsher, maybe withholding things so children or their community can grow and be self sufficient. It's similar to that I don't know if it's proverb is the right word or an adage, but it says you give a man a fish, he'll eat that fish, but then like he'll come back to you. But if you teach a man to fish, he'll be able to fish on his own independently and be able to feed himself. And that is the energy of Saturn in mythology, is that uh, if a child were to come to Saturn and ask for something, Saturn most likely would say no, but instead would either teach indirectly or directly. And usually it's kind of indirect. It's no, you need to learn this lesson, figure it out. And so Saturn can be harsh, especially in mythology. That's something you want to read about. So it can feel almost like this cold presence that you might feel that you're not being nurtured. But Saturn teaches through time, and that is the ruler of time, Saturn. So Capricorn in astrology is going to bring apart whatever Capricorn shows up in a natal chart. It's going to show where it might be slower to accomplish things, or that there might be a suppression, or it might just not be um, present feeling, or super emotional or super light. So it can bring a heaviness to whatever part of the chart Capricorn's in. So when we have it in the sign of moon, that's where it gets tricky, because the moon wants to flow and feel and be in the present and be nurturing, wants to be very, very loving and nurturing. If you want to hear more about Saturn, I forgot to mention, I have an episode, Sun in Capricorn, where I talk more about personality. But Saturn has that emotional distance. But the moon wants to be emotionally close. It wants to be as close as possible. In the story of the Luna goddess of the moon, she came down and she peppered her lover with kisses as he slept at night. And just so there's this emotional closeness there. But Capricorn wants to be at a distance. So we have this push and pull. We have this tension between wanting to be emotionally close, because the moon placement wants to be emotionally close, but that Capricorn energy makes people go, no, no, we have to be practical about this. We need to be logical. We need to be long term. So it's not bad. It's just there are going to be things that might look different, or might appear at odds with what society wants, or what your expectations that society has of you. And so that's also why it can be challenging for someone who's under 30. Uh, the mastery of Moon at Capricorn is having goals that are set, having a successful career in life. And that looks more favorable when people are 50, 60, 70, when they have a lot of external success. But when you're 10, people are expected to be more free and happy go lucky. And what do you feel today? What feelings do you want to bring to things? And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. But the symbolism in the elements here, Capricorn is earth and moon is water. So moon, especially Capricorn, is the higher octave of all the earth signs. So it is the most mature. Taurus through Virgo are still learning and mastering, whereas Capricorn, that energy has mastered uh, growth and stability. So you have a very strong energy to contain this water. That earth quality of Capricorn is going to hold that water so well that people might not even know it's there. And that's the symbolism here, is that you might, if you have Moon in Capricorn, your emotions might be hidden so well that people don't see it, they don't feel it. And we know that's not true. I know that's not true. I have people in my life that are Moon in Capricorn, and I know they have feelings, I know they have emotions. It just might be more hidden or protected because it's not emotions are not inherently stable. They're not always practical. So when someone has Moon in Capricorn, we often see that there's either a deliberate need to hide these emotions because Capricorn wants respect, especially in the sign of the moon. The what emotionally makes people with Moon in Capricorn feel fulfilled is respect. And as you know, if you are feeling emotionally volatile, if you are having an extreme emotional reaction, it can be hard to feel that you are respected in that time. So there's this need to control how the emotions are expressed, how they come off, what they look like. And so, what that can seem to be is that someone who has Moon in Capricorn might come off more cold or more unfeeling, but that's not true. It's just expressed differently. So when it comes to the childhood and the inner child of someone who has Moon in Capricorn, it's very common that the parent or the mother of someone of the child with Moon in Capricorn did not know how to emote in a way that was appropriate or balanced or even healthy. So it's going to depend on everybody, but usually there was something around the emotions of the parents or the mother or the caregiver, the main caregiver, where these emotions were wildly inappropriate. So that could be parents maybe had mood swings or they were just having these emotions that were causing a lot of instability. And this could even look like um, instability in finances and security that maybe made someone who has Moon in Capricorn feel uncomfortable. But it most likely was that there was an emotional volatility or the emotions were just expressed in a way that was inappropriate. Um, that made so with someone with Moon in Capricorn, what this can do is make them grow up to feel that their emotions are either inappropriate or they shouldn't be heard or that's not a valid way, it's not an appropriate way to go through life is to have emotions because they maybe saw emotions that were too messy or too inappropriate. So this pendulum can swing the other way where now Moon and Capricorn is like, fine, I'm going to hide these well. I'm going to make sure that I emote in a very, very practical way. But that can lead to a lot of repression. That can lead to a lot of distance in relationships. It can be challenging to get close relationships if there is too much monitoring of the emotions or they are very unconscious. So someone with Moon in Capricorn might not even be aware that they are uh, coming across emotionally distant because they might have learned it's safer and it looks better to not emote. And so they want to, someone with Moon in Capricorn wants to grow up to build a legacy, to be respected. And so they might overcorrect and not really want to feel their emotions or really kind of suppress them or pack them away. So when you have Moon in Capricorn, there are a lot of ways you can help heal your inner child, especially if what I said before about the childhood was the case. But either way, to feel more emotionally fulfilled, Moon in Capricorn, is to find things that you can build off of. Find something you can build towards. So feeling respected, feeling like you mastered something, or just being successful are some ways that people with this placement can really feel emotionally fulfilled. So this can even be on a hobby scale. It doesn't have to be career, but maybe you have a hobby where you are literally building things. This can be Legos. I always think of like the ships in the bottle, like you're building something like it's something you can master, but it can be more internal too. Like even if it's playing an instrument, maybe it's learning how to make a film, create film. So anything that's a skill that you can master, that you can craft, especially if it's tangible in some way, something that will leave an imprint. So, like I said, a film, if you get a film, um, that's something that will stand the test of time. So something more tangible that just doesn't go away in a moment. So we really see a lot of people who create businesses, which range from anything creative, like setting up a program, a new type of class, writing books, film, but even more of a commercial or retail based business. So anything but just starting something that has a lasting presence or changes or kind of puts their name up to be respected and well regarded long after is something that can really be emotionally fulfilling. But just for self care and daily use, it can just be learning a skill just to learn it. Um, this could also be taking a class, any kind of physical activity that is outdoors, especially near the earth. So, like hiking, that can be really restorative for someone who has displacement emotionally. So, find out what you would like to do and what you would like to be known for. What is grounding? What's natural? What's practical? Capricorn rules our joints, our ligaments, the skin, like everything that holds our body together. So this could also be a passion or something too, or goal, working with the body in some way, the bones, the skin. Or it's just even self-care, like maintenance of that could be really good. Okay, that's what I have for you today, Moon and Capricorn. Thank you so much for listening. If this resonated or you just want to tell me how this showed up for you, you can leave a comment. I would appreciate it. Otherwise, thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye.